Good morning and welcome to MCP Dev Days. I'm excited to kick off this event. Over the next 2 days, we're going to dive deep into MCP and all the ways it's reshaping how we build. Today is about dev tools in our incredible community, and tomorrow we'll roll up our sleeves and get into the nuts and bolts of integrating MCP with agents. Now, we're joined by an amazing lineup of partners and speakers, from Anthropic, who created MCP, to innovative companies like Neon and Okta, who are already pushing the boundaries of what's possible with the protocol. For teams here at Microsoft, this isn't just another spec. It's fundamental to our vision for the future of AI development. We've seen MCP accelerate our agentic workflows faster than anything that's come before, and we're seeing this excitement not only at Microsoft, but also with partners across the entire ecosystem. Through the MCP Steering Committee, we're collaborating with companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, Okta, AWS, and others to grow MCP and push the technology forward. It's truly a collaborative effort, and we'll continue to listen, learn, and contribute back. This morning, you're going to see exactly what Microsoft's commitment looks like. You'll see MCP investments across our agentic developer tools, including deep integration with GitHub Copilot. You'll also see how our Agent Foundry is embracing MCP for enterprise AI, and you'll see the work we've done to implement auth support via OAuth standard so you can leverage Entra ID flows or other auth providers to secure your remote servers. And you'll see how we're evolving MCP together with Anthropic and the broader community, pushing the protocol forward to meet the needs of developers everywhere. So now let's hand it over to James and Burke, who are going to show you what's possible with MCP today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jay. I'm James Montemagno, a program manager here at Microsoft, and I am super excited about all the innovation in the space around MCP and agentic developer tools. Now, if you're brand new to MCP, we have an awesome 2-day lineup for you. But let's kind of kick it off here and talk a little bit about MCP itself. It truly is this protocol to provide context to models. It's in the name, MCP, Model Context Protocol. It gives us a standard way of connecting LLMs with data, tools, and resources. You can kind of think of it as a universal adapter for AI applications, the same way that a universal adapter enables you to connect your devices to different accessories and peripherals. It enables us to connect these AI applications, the data and tools, without having to create multiple connections and custom applications over and over again for different data sources and different clients that we want to integrate with. And there are a few parts of MCP that you need to know about. First is the host itself. This is the AI application, such as VS Code, for example, that helps coordinate and manage different MCP clients. And these clients are components that are maintaining that connection to MCP servers. And its entire job is to help obtain context from those MCP servers and go back and forth. And those servers are the most important part. These are lightweight applications that can run locally or remotely that help provide context to the MCP clients. Now, what does that actually mean, right, in real usage? Well, you could have an MCP server for a database, for example, like Postgres. You could then talk to the agent, to the LLM, and say, hey, I want to query my database or get a schema. It can then talk to the MCP server, know how to talk to any of the different databases, pull it back, and generate a class for you. You could, for example, query GitHub, pull down top issues, create issues for you, dive into pull requests, assign it to different users, all in natural language. Or my favorite, with Playwright and the MCP server, do end-to-end testing. Use natural language, tell you what I want to test, and it goes off and performs the actions for you. Now let's start today by talking about our developer tools and the MCP integration, and specifically with VS Code. Now there are several key components to MCP servers that they can make available to different clients like VS Code. And VS Code has the full specification implemented with all the different features and functionality, including the latest authentication flows. And what does this mean? Well, it means as a developer, you have more tools in your toolbox when you're working with the agent. In fact, there are a bunch of tools that are part of MCP servers. And these are the things that when you're working with the agent, that they can invoke different functions or piece of functionality. So things like calling into the Playwright MCP server to open the browser, make clicks, do things, querying the database. There are different things that can retrieve data and submit data and take actions for you. Now, when we're doing this, we're providing a lot of context. And we'll say context about 1,000 times, I think, today. But context is really important when we're working with agent and models. And when we're applying context like what we're typing or attaching screenshots for vision, for example, we're providing that. But MCP servers can also provide these resources. So for example, it can attach an API response, a file, a screenshot automatically, so you don't have to make multiple requests. The MCP server can expose that automatically, so then you can send it off to the agent. And then finally, prompts. And you think about prompts specifically about things that we have in our code base that we're doing over and over again. And those are things that we create. But actually, MCP servers can expose prompts as well. And they can be bidirectional. So it can ask you information and then apply it to the prompt. And that's great when working with MCP servers. So it can provide a prompt to actually take actions for you with the agent. Now, I want to take a look at this in action because it's awesome to see it. And I can think of no one better than my good friend, Burke Holland, who is right here beside me. Hey, Burke, how's it going?
Where did I come from?
You're right. Dude, been here the entire time.
Oh, it's amazing. What's up, y'all? Thanks for joining us this morning. Now, James, you may be asking yourself, how do I get started with MCP in Visual Studio Code? Where do I go? Well, that's a strange question for you to ask because you do this full time.
That is correct.
I think I need to email your manager. But for those who do not, that's a legitimate question. Let's jump in and take a look. So in Visual Studio Code, if you hop over to your extensions tab here, you'll see your MCP servers here. So MCP servers extend the capabilities of the agent, and so you can find them in the extensions view in Visual Studio Code. You see I got two here, Playwright for automated testing, as you said, and Context 7, which gives my agent access to documentation. Let's say I want to install another MCP server though. We have a curated list of them right here to choose from. Now these are MCP servers that we consider to be top tier MCP servers, not an exhaustive list, right? There's a lot of great ones out there. This is just to get you started.
And you can submit your own too.
You can submit your own. That is correct right here. So I'm going to go ahead and install GitHub MCP servers. So I'm just going to click there and you can see when I do that, it automatically opens in Visual Studio Code and I can just click install and it's installed.
Beautiful, easy.
Easy, that's it. So we can examine our MCP servers here. So you can see we got 3 now. We can move between them. We can look at their configuration, but y'all may know, if you've used MCP before, that they're usually JSON configuration blocks, right? And so that's somewhere. Where actually is that?
Where is it, Burke?
It is right here. Let me show you. So if we go to user, MCP user settings here in the command palette, MCP user configuration. There they are.
Beautiful.
Right? So this is what's happening behind the scenes. We can go ahead and start these servers here. So let's start Playwright. We'll start Context 7.
And some of these are local and some of them are remote, like we can see the GitHub here.
Correct, exactly. So the GitHub one is just a server, right? There's nothing to run locally. We're actually using the server. And you can see it's actually contributing a prompt as well, which is something that you talked about in the slides. So let's actually take a look and actually use this to do something here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat here. And let's make the chat real big because, you know, we don't need to.
That's how I use it.
Yeah, exactly. Full screen chat. All right, now, what do we want to do? Here's what I want to do. I would like to go to search GitHub for all of James, how do you spell your last name?
T-E.
Montemagno. Did I get it?
Yeah, no, that's perfect, yeah.
James Montemagno's monkey-themed repos. As I understand it, you have a lot of monkey-themed repos. Why is that?
Well, it's a long history. We'll see if
You think you get it?
if the agent can figure it out. Let's see.
Right now it's saying it wants to sign in with GitHub. Do we want to allow that? So I'm going to say yes. And this is the OAuth that Jay was talking about in the intro there. So we're going to OAuth and we get to pick because we're already signed into GitHub in Visual Studio Code. Chat as you should be. And so all we have to do is select the account we're currently signed in with.
Beautiful.
And we're off to the races, right? And so now what is the agent doing? It's gone out and it's searching repositories, right? And now it's going to bring back all of your monkey theme.
But it's not searching, like it's not doing a Bing Google search. Like it's using the MCP server, correct?
That is correct. So it's not actually going out to the web, it's going directly against the GitHub API. Look at all these, dude. Monkeys.
Got a lot of monkeys.
What is this? You have a monkey MCP server?
You have to have a monkey MCP
Well, you know
server.
what I'm going to do? I'm going to fork that right now.
You're going to fork?
Right from the agent. So again, this is not just about retrieving data. This is about actually working with systems that you might otherwise not have access to. Now, this is interesting here because it's telling us we have too many tools. So what's going on?
Too many tools.
Yeah, so let's go to configure tools here, which is right here, and we can see all of the tools that we actually have enabled here. And you can only send so many tools with a particular request. And so what we can do is just kind of deselect some here. So like some of these that we're not actually going to use. And so we can actually send this request. So we're going to leave fork repository on, correct? And then if we run this again here, let's do it. Now we can actually get the agent to go out and fork that GitHub repo over to my account, as you can see it's doing now.
And you can see it running there. Now it's running automatically.
Correct.
Why is that?
Well, the reason why it's running automatically is because I have turned on something called auto approve in my VS Code settings, so it doesn't ask me. For you, chat, as you're doing it, it will ask you. So if you go to user settings, you go to your user settings. If you just search for auto approve here, there's an auto approve that you can turn on, and it will stop asking you.
Very cool.
Right? And,
you can then approve a single request or multiple requests as well.
That is correct. So now let's do this though. That's fun, that's interesting. Let's do something useful though.
Okay, I thought that was pretty useful, and I do want to point out that it even tells you how many stars there were and how many that is MIT licensed. So it actually is getting information about the server. But yeah, let's do something even more useful.
Yes, that is definitely true. So let's do something a little bit more. Let's talk about Playwright, because you did mention that. So Playwright is a fantastic library for automated testing, but I don't know how to use Playwright. But I don't need to, because the agent does. So let me give you an example. Here's an application that I built, and by I mean Claude. Right, this 2025. I say I built it, it just means Claude built it. And it's just a website for collecting lists of links and sharing them with people. But if you'll notice, when we use the BattleNet link here, we don't get any information like we do for these other two very nice websites, Visual Studio Code and Anthropic. Why is that?
I don't know. Why is that?
I don't know. Right?
Should we investigate BattleNet and figure out what's going on?
Exactly. We could, or we could send the agent off to do that instead.
But you don't have the code.
The code.
You don't need BattleNet code.
That is correct.
Oh my gosh, okay.
All right, so here we go. I'm gonna go to my prompts here. I'm gonna hit /, and I've got a pre-configured prompt here called debug page.
Okay.
And these prompts, if we go to configure prompts here, these prompts, you can create new ones. And if we go there, you can see your job is to debug a particular URL, and these are the tools that it has access to.
Beautiful.
So what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna say debug page. We're just gonna tell it. We're gonna say battle.net. OG info is not being returned. Please tell me why.
And in that prompt, you have some information about calling and invoking and opening the browser that it's going to figure out.
Exactly, right? We just use the standard sort of prompt strategies where we say, you are an automated testing expert, use the Playwright MCP tools to first search the code base, understand what's going on, then use the tools. And you can, as you can see, it's going to go through and solve this problem the way that it thinks that it should be solved. So it's going through, it's going to create a new list. And then my guess is that it's going to try to add that URL to the list and check to see what's actually happening here. But again, this is really interesting to watch what the agent actually decides to do, because it's doing, we're not doing any of this, right? It's doing everything.
This is magic.
Yeah.
Or
both of us are like,
yeah,
okay. So let's go back here. All right. So you can see here, it can see the link was added, and it's just going to keep doing this until it can figure out what is actually going on here, right? And now it's testing the metadata scraping, so it's actually calling the API directly to look at the JSON response.
Wow.
Right? Claude is an incredibly powerful and intelligent model, and when you couple it with tools like this, when you give it access to something like the browser, I mean, it really takes it to the next level. So what we're going to do here is you can see it now sees what the problem is, right? So I'm going to stop it here. And what I want to do now is I don't want to work on this right now.
Yeah.
Because we're doing it right. We're in a Keynote and we have like 6 minutes. So what I'm going to do is say, great, open an issue for this on GitHub. And you'll notice that I misspelled open.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because LLMs are really, really good with your terrible grammar and with your bad. And so here, this is interesting. You can see it's trying to use Playwright again, and that's likely because we have disabled the tool that it needs to do that. So let's go back in, let's disable it. That's okay, this happens. And then let's just come back and do this again.
And you can create custom tool sets so you can actually customize which ones you want for different actions.
Correct. And you can see now that we've got the right tools selected, it's going to go ahead and create that and do it right on GitHub for us, create that issue, and it's going to write up all of its findings and put that in the issue.
So it's taking the entire context.
Correctly, of the chat.
So this is a nice developer flow because you don't have to leave your tool to actually start working across these.
100%.
Because you can go to GitHub, create the issue, but then you'd have to go.
Right. Now, let me show you something else while this is spinning here. So see this add context button?
Oh, yeah.
You talked a little bit about resources here. Resources you can attach right from. So if we go to add context, see this MCP resources item? This is how you use resources. So for instance, if there was an item on GitHub chat that we wanted to include to the agent, instead of having to download it and include it, we can just click here, go to repository content, specify it. The agent will then get it via the MCP server and use it as part of it.
Beautiful.
Right. All right, so now we've created this issue here, really nice. Got a couple options. We could say fix it, and we could just, this little button right here, delegate to Copilot. Not Copilot locally, Copilot in the cloud, right?
Agent in the cloud.
The coding agent, right. So we could hit this, delegate it to the coding agent, but we could also just do this. Agents are so smart. We could just say, assign it to Copilot, like this. And again, because the GitHub MCP server has an assigned to Copilot tool, it will call that, assign it to Copilot, and then Copilot will begin working on this directly.
Awesome.
Right.
But this agent is up in the cloud on your machine. Like, can those things also use MCP servers as well?
Great question. So let's jump over there to the repo. I'm going to come over here to the repository settings. And if we come down in the settings here for this repo and we look at the coding agent, so in the sidebar here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit.
Beautiful.
A whole lot. So coding agent under Copilot, if you go all the way to the bottom, you can see you can add MCP servers here just like you do in Visual Studio Code.
Beautiful.
And yes, it can use them and it will run, right, this local Context 7 MCP server and will use this in its agent, in the agent runs. It's really nice.
And what if you wanted to use like Playwright and GitHub? Would you add them here?
Well, you wouldn't because you don't need to do that because they are already there.
Beautiful.
So by default, you get the GitHub and Playwright MCP servers. What does that mean? So let's take a look at a pull request that is already finished. I did this last night. So I wanted to add a preview image. So you can see here, it's gone through and then it did it. And then if you scroll down, it provides screenshots for you right here in the pull request. And look, you can see it's not working.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we can just go back and reply and say, looks like the images are broken, right? Please try again. And we would probably ideally add more information than this, right? But then the Copilot coding agent will go right back to work. Beautiful. And you can use all of this today in Visual Studio Code. All of what I just showed you is available right now. You can use these coding agents right now. And because one premium request is one agent run, you can do really complex things like say refactor my entire application. That's one premium Claude request, only one.
It's great to see the full end-to-end of our developer workflow and how we're infusing that not only with MCPs, but these agents together.
Exciting.
Burke, absolutely beautiful. And I know you have a whole session tomorrow to get ready for.
I do. We're going to build an MCP server to control a light. I'll see you there. Bye.
I see you, Burke. Awesome. So I love the work that's being done. And you're going to see more in-depth sessions, not only today, but also tomorrow on both Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio. So make sure you stay tuned for the rest of today and tomorrow. But let's change topics a little bit and let's talk a little bit about how MCP can transform how we build agents themselves and to deploy them. You know, Azure AI Foundry brings together models, agents, and tools, and more into a unified experience for developers. And you can access its services through a developer-friendly portal, a unified SDK, and APIs to build AI solutions. Now, one of the core components of Azure AI Foundry is the agent service. It's a flexible platform for building, deploying, and managing AI agents. And these can run autonomously with human oversight, leveraging contextual data to perform tasks and achieve specific goals. Now, these agents can incorporate MCP servers now and call their tools directly, just like we saw VS Code and the agent do. So here's Linda to tell us a little bit more.
Hey, I'm Linda. I am a product manager from Azure AI Foundry Agent Service. Today, I'm really excited to demo to you the latest integration between Foundry Agent Service and MCP, Model Context Protocol. So as we all know, Model Context Protocol, MCPs, is a powerful protocol for us to connect your agent with a service that you want to connect with, to add any functionality, to let it function as a tool to your agent, to empower your agent to perform any tasks that you want it to be powered by this MCP protocol. And today in my demo, I want to show you how you can use Git MCP to add a documentation server to really quickly look up for anything related to Azure REST API specs with your Foundry agent service. So let's get started. So it's pretty easy to get started. You just need the MCP server URL. I'll go ahead and click it. And then I can come to my SDK sample code. So as you can see here, this is a standard Python SDK to try out and play around with Foundry Agent Service. I can spin up my project. I can create an MCP tool. And over here, when I'm creating my MCP tool, I only need the server label. And also, I need to put the server URL, which is the URL that I just copied. And then I can go ahead and create an agent. I need my model, the name, instruction, and definition, etc. And by default, we will need approval for all of the tools that needs to be called by this MCP server. So I had a few pivots and snippets in my code so that once a tool does need approval, I'll see the specific tool in this MCP server that will be called, and I will type something to approve it if I want to approve it after reviewing all of the details. And then I can send the approval to the agent. So the agent will go ahead and execute the tool calling. And then once it's finished, I'll see the specific run steps that I can see specifically step by step what has been done so that it has have better tracing and observability around what my Foundry agent is doing. And then I can see all of the messages. So that's it. Let's get started and see how it actually works in real life. Just do Python MCP. So as you can see, it's I just get it running. It might take a few seconds for it to get started. So as you can see, it started to create an agent, create a thread, create a message, create a run with my specific question here that my question is about, tell me more about the Azure REST API specs, which is a really simple one. As you can see here, it will ask for my approval before it actually sends the request to MCP server. It decides that it will need to use it will need to call the MCP tool, MCP specific tool and the specific server. It tells me which specific argument or MCP tool is gonna invoke, which is fetch Azure REST API docs, and it asks for my approval. I'll type yes to approve it. It shows the tool calling has been approved. And we'll send the approved tool calling to the MCP server. As you can see, it fetches back and returns a response to me with the specific information about what is Azure REST API specs and some of the information here. That's the end of my demo. Thanks so much for watching and enjoy the conference.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alinda. I love seeing how MCP and servers can be integrated into even more places as we continue to build out AI applications and agents. Now, Windows is used by billions of people every single day around the world. And at Build, we announced our plans to deeply integrate MCP throughout Windows. And that journey has started, and there's several key areas for this integration of MCP, including a full MCP registry, so users can browse MCP servers. Also, the ability for us to register MCP servers with Windows itself, so users can turn them on and off. And also a predefined set of Windows MCP servers that are built in to give rich functionality to the file system, windowing system, and a lot more. Now, to talk a little bit more in depth on this and to see it in action, let's head over to Donald.
Hello, my name is Donald Thompson. I'm a distinguished engineer in the Windows Platform and Developer Group. I am the architect for the forthcoming Agentic OS effort in Windows. And I'm here to talk to you about the steps that we're taking towards this agentic future with Windows. Everybody's heard about agents. They are able to reason about your task and your goals, use tools, and collaborate with other agents in order to accomplish them. In order to build toward that future, we've made an early investment in MCP. natively available in the Windows OS. And this is to solve a whole bunch of problems that exist with building around MCP today, whether you're providing servers or whether you're trying to consume them with your application or your agent. Oftentimes, for instance, you'll have to manage JSON configuration and force your users to update that configuration with things like API keys and so on. So we want to smooth out some of those experiences. And of course, this is new technology, and with new technology comes the security risks that we also want to address. So key to all of this is, how do you, as an agent or an application, an AI application, find which servers are available for you to use? How do you get those servers hosted in a secure way so that users can be confident that it's your server that's being used and not someone masquerading around as your server? And how do we create an ecosystem of trust and overcome a bunch of the security problems that can be solved through Defender, Intune, and a whole bunch of other enterprise-grade safety mechanisms that we have available to us? And there are really three main components that we'll talk about today. One is the MCP registry. This is where the users will be able to install and register individual MCP services, whether they are remote or they are local, and provide permissions and provisioning steps such as API keys that are maintained in a very secure and safe environment. And registry services are then available for your applications to query and find which servers are available to you to use. Here's some example code using .NET and the latest Windows SDK. So you can query the registry and find and enumerate through all of the different servers, looking for perhaps a specific one or all of them in general that you have access to. And then you can very simply add them to a collection and invoke them from your agent. So here's an example of the set of tools that are available for a specific server. And we just use the OpenAI client, give it the collection of tools and a prompt, and enter into a message loop. And so this is just a simple command line agent where I can type in various requests, and it will use those tools automatically. And that's all handled in a single call that's doing the tool finding, selection, and invocation in the SDK itself. The second component are the MCP servers themselves for Windows. So we're making it quite easy for you to create packaged, identified, cryptographically signed applications that are safe to be run in the Windows environment natively. And then the third area is how that creates a set of trustworthy components. They are secure. We will run those processes in isolation containers, very fast to spin up, and are protected from doing things that the user wouldn't be comfortable doing, accessing file system and network, unless they are provisioned accordingly. And then the last area that we're investing is first-party MCP servers from Windows itself. And this is really exciting because now you can actually interact, your agents can interact with the Windows platform itself. So we've introduced recently app actions, which are now supported by many applications. You can take advantage of those app actions. Windows subsystem for Linux, you can launch and you can even deploy entire Linux distributions and interact and issue commands to that subsystem. Interact with Windows, of course, manage settings on behalf of your user, interact with the file system in a safe way, including semantic search. And let me show a quick demo of our partners, Perplexity and SparkMail, working together in an agentic way to solve a user problem. So in the Perplexity desktop, they have integrated naturally with the Windows registry for MCP. And you can see that there are a number of MCP servers that are enabled, including the file system and the SnapMail, SparkMail desktop application. So the user has entered in something, a query to search for MCP documents, and we get a user permissioning dialog. The user says, yes, it's safe to search. And here it searched the local file system set of documents that contain information about MCP. So it's used file search and semantic search together. And now it's saying, send this collection of information in email. And that launches the desktop application for Spark Mail and begins a new email with that content. So saving the user from having to discover all of this and cut and paste and so on. And that's an example of an agentic application that was now completely integrated with the Windows MCP services. Our partners are across the board, from OpenAI, Anthropic, obviously Perplexity, are all excited about these opportunities. We're seeing a lot of interest in an update and adoption in our early dev preview builds. And this is just the first step towards this agentic future. We are announcing at Ignite the availability of this as a early release, and a huge number of partners in private preview. Looking forward, we will have computer using agents. This is actually interacting with the computer itself using vision and other technologies. We are now also working on the multi-agent interactions and including dynamically defined agents so that you as a user can very easily create new agents on the fly and have them registered and participating in the ecosystem. So we're excited to see what you're going to build in the next versions of Windows.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Donald. I love this agentic future of Windows and how all of our applications can work together. Now, one of the things that Donald talked about was the registry, and we've partnered extremely close with Anthropic and the community to help build the official MCP community registry. Now, this is all built on the open on GitHub, and it provides the foundation for many of our internal projects, including powering the up-and-coming registries across GitHub, VS Code, and Windows. Now, Drew is actually going to be here in just a few minutes from Anthropic talking about the journey of building this actual community registry out there. Now, on top of the community registry, also there are enterprises that are looking to deploy their own private registries, and that's where Azure API Center comes in. It provides capability for enterprises that want to deploy and build their own MCP registries for their organization. It provides powerful governance to help meet their company's requirements. You can check out more at mcp.azure.com. Now, there's going to be tons of amazing sessions throughout MCP Dev Days, but there are a few great resources to get started. If you're brand new, we have a full beginner series and video series right here on the Microsoft Developer YouTube. If you want to explore MCP servers, check out the VS Code website. And of course, if you're building AI applications with Azure AI Foundry, hop in to the Discord. Now, all throughout the event, we'll be here live getting your questions in real time, whether you're on YouTube, Twitch, or you're on socials across Twitter, X, Mastodon, and Blue Sky. And you can use hashtag MCP Dev Days and we'll pull those in live. So with that, let's head back over to Jay to close out the keynote.
MCP is transforming how you leverage AI in your developer workflows, from the code editor to the cloud to your desktop. Microsoft is all in with investments across our entire ecosystem. Our partnership with Anthropic and the steering committee is driving the protocol forward for everyone. And the tools and the infrastructure you need to build and host MCP servers are available today. The registry announcement you just heard about is a perfect example of what we can achieve together. Whether you're using the community registry on GitHub or our private secure registry with Azure API Center, you'll have the tools to discover, share, and manage MCPs across your entire organization. Now, over the next 2 days, you'll learn how to accelerate your productivity with MCP, build your own MCP servers, secure them, scale them, and integrate them into your applications. You'll hear from our partners, see real-world applications, and get hands-on with the tools. This is more than just a protocol. It's the foundation for the next generation of AI applications, and you're here at the beginning. Thank you for joining us at MCP Dev Days. Now let's jump into the first session with Anthropic to learn about the community registry.
Hey everyone, my name is Drew Hoden and I'm with Anthropic on the Plaid AI engineering team and really excited to be here today to talk a little bit more about MCP. So first, wanted to take a moment and just acknowledge how excited we are that since we've introduced MCP, all the players in the industry, all of you building LLM apps have rapidly adopted the technology and joined the community and made it a lot better. As you can see here, there's been a few foundational open source protocols and technologies that have been incredibly important for building the open internet, whether you're a startup, an individual developer, a large enterprise, and we very much see MCP as one of these, especially as we move into the Gen AI and agentic era. I also want to thank all the folks here on the VS Code, GitHub, and Microsoft teams for being such huge active participants and leads within the MCP community. They have a number of members that are part of the MCP core steering committee and have been involved in many different projects throughout the protocol, including the core OAuth implementation. They're co-leads on the registry team, client apps, owning the C# SDK, working on agent to agent, and also now owning the GitHub MCP server. So thanks, and really looking forward to a whole bunch more collaboration within the community. Want to talk about one of the new exciting things you're hearing about, and that's the introduction of registries. So here you can see the Anthropic Claude connectors directory. So this is the Anthropic registry where you can upload MCP servers. They can be vetted and plugged directly into Claude and Claude-powered applications. Now, the MCP team is working on a meta registry API, basically a place where you as an MCP server developer can publish your server once, and then it could be consumed by all the many directories and registries throughout the industry, including the Anthropic connectors directory, the VS Code registry, the GitHub registry, etc. Now, the goal here is really allowing you to publish once, be consumed many places. And we're working as a community to standardize what that looks like. We think this is important because depending on, and we think that it makes sense to have a number of registries. Different organizations have different security requirements. They deploy MCPs differently. They might care about one subset versus another. People are also looking to deploy their own internal registries. So we're working together to standardize what this looks like, and so that you can just focus on building great apps or building great services to consume MCP servers. I also want to take a moment to talk about some of the new protocol updates and everything that we've been collaborating on so that you know the cool new features you can use in what you're building. So with the most recent release in June 18th, I'm excited to announce that we've launched elicitation. This is the ability for servers and tool requests to ask for additional user input to qualify what they're looking to do. This really enables more of an agentic flow where tools can accomplish more, even if you don't know all the information up front. I'll show an example of that shortly. We also launched full support for structured outputs, resource links, and tool responses. So as folks use more than just tools, they're using resources, sampling, et cetera. Those are more tightly linked. And passing along context, really helpful in sub-agent flows. From a security standpoint, we launched mandatory resource indicators, a really key feature to help prevent malicious token access. If you've got a token that's for a particular MCP server, basically locks it down for that MCP server. We also launched OAuth 2.1 resource server support. From a protocol standpoint, now there's mandatory protocol version negotiation. So clients and servers are always speaking the same version, and a number of features that support that. What about what's next? So first, in the agentic field, I'm excited to talk about asynchronous operations. So think long-running tasks that might take longer time periods. You can delegate work and then pull it and see if it's making progress, reconnect if there's any issues. On the security front, we're launching many new guides and best practices, fine-grained authorization, and just making it easier to get enterprise-grade authorization and security using things like single sign-on. Lastly, on the protocol front, shipping validation to just make it easier for you to ship production quality servers consistently and worry less about the lower level bits. There's the meta registry API that you're hearing a lot about. And lastly, improve support for multimodality. So things like video, other media types, streaming responses for larger payloads. All of these are coming soon, and we're really excited about them. Here's elicitation, or an example of an elicitation flow that we shipped recently. This is the Claude research feature, where you can ask Claude a question, and Claude will go do minutes, if not 2 to 10 minutes of research for you. A lot of applications like this, you'll notice, actually do ask the user a few follow-up questions before they go do a large chunk of work. Now, this is an example of an elicitation phase. We didn't build this on MCP elicitation because it wasn't available at the time. But now with MCP elicitation, this is even easier to do if you're building an app like this. This is just another example of where Folks like yourself are building cutting edge agentic applications, really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with LLMs. And quickly, some of these features, if they're really helpful, are absorbed into the MCP protocol so that everyone can build even more quickly and not have to worry about implementing workarounds like this. Here, I like to talk briefly about different MCP authoring patterns we see. If you're new to MCP, or if you've built a few servers and started to get into the weeds a little bit on prompting, I think it's really important to acknowledge that depending on whether you're building the MCP host, so the application that's using MCPs, or building an MCP yourself, you might have different challenges or different concerns depending on your deployment pattern. So as you can see here, when I say first party, I basically mean you're controlling the prompting that the model is seeing. In the first example, let's say you're the GitHub team and you're building the GitHub MCP server. Well, if that's being plugged into, say, VS Code, Claude Code, other tools like that, that MCP server might be sitting alongside many other servers. So you have to think about tool names, you have tool collisions, what does the upstream app look like? What does that prompt look like? In the second scenario, let's say you're building the GitHub agent product and you also own the GitHub MCP server. Now you own all the prompting the model will see. So this is a little bit easier of a scenario. Maybe that application expands more and is using other GitHub or Microsoft MCP servers. Well, that team is now writing the MCP tools, but you can give them a call if there's any questions or issues. As that grows, you might have run into this if you're building your own LLM app and you're using third-party servers. Now you control the core prompts, but you're using other people's tools. Similarly, if you own the GitHub MCP server and it's being used in other projects, you only control the tools part. So I just like to throw this out there as a helpful model as you start to develop MCP servers and understand the parts of the model that you're controlling. Lastly, just want to touch on a few themes we see on MCP in production. First, in internal scenarios, we see a lot of focus on developer velocity and security, although increasing focus on business users as well. A lot of folks have figured out or are figuring out how they deploy them. Do they containerize MCP servers that they're running? Runtimes are different, depends on the cloud provider you're using, or there's a lot of other places you can run MCP servers. Folks have built their own registries, and this is going to get even easier with the Meta Registry API. This enables discoverability as you have agents that increasingly can go out and find new skills and new MCPs. A lot of folks I've seen use monorepos to put all their MCPs in one place, but it really depends on your needs. As you move more towards an external deployment model, following API serving best practices from a standpoint of security, rate limiting, redundancy, these sorts of things, a lot of that translates quite well. You do need to decide, are you operating in a stateful or a stateless manner? There's a lot of rich features in a stateful MCP world, but some additional serving considerations. And then you'll also have to start looking at tool parameter protections, injections. There's a lot of work in the community on this space, so definitely be up to date on the latest there. How to get involved? Take a look at the documentation. Also, you can contribute to the core protocol or any of the SDKs you use on GitHub. And lastly, you can take a look at the Cloud Connectors registry as an example of the Anthropic MCP registry. And we're looking forward to many registries like it. So with that, thanks for having me, and back to the studio.
Welcome to MCP Dev Days. I'm Mark Biza. I'm one of your hosts today, and I'm joined here with
Katie Savage.
Awesome. And thanks, Drew, for talking all about Anthropic, our partnership, MCP, the roadmap. And we have a couple questions from the audience here. The first one I wanted to chat about was something that you touched on, which was, can an MCP server push data to a user, like a push notification that shows up in the chat of a user?
Yeah, so if you're in a stateful mode in MCP, we do have the ability to push basically resource notifications and alert the upstream MCP host that some amount of work is done. This will get more robust with tasks and long-running tasks. And then it's up to you and your application how you display that to the user. So this is one of the benefits that you might not use as much if you're in a stateless world, but increasingly we're seeing people play around with stateful.
Awesome.
And this is different than like a scheduled notification. Hey, the LLM has not been doing anything for the last 2 hours. I want to now send a reminder to the user. You could do that through MCP, but typically I've seen it used more in sort of short to medium-lived operations. But again, stay tuned with the asynchronous and tasks API.
Awesome. Did you want to queue up that one?
Totally. Yeah, we have another question from Ryan here, and he's asking, how do you mitigate sending too many tools without just turning them off? I think he's worried about having to, turn them on and off and going back and forth.
Yeah, so this is a very common question, is the too many tools question. One of the reasons I showed that slide of like, which world are you in? Are you the MCP author? Are you building the host and consuming other people's MCPs? I think sometimes the question is, when does the model, depends on the model you're using, when does that start to break down and not know how to handle all the tools? And in kind of my world, usually what users will run into first is, we could support a lot of tools, but you're going to have overlapping tools before you might hit the limits of the model. The classic example is search. What if you have a tool called search, but you've got GitHub search and OneDrive search and web search? How does the model know which one to call? You can steer the model with examples, you can do this sort of thing, but often that's where you run into issues. So I'd say if you're an MCP author, write descriptive, semantically meaningful tool names, including the name of your app. So instead of search, say OneDrive search or GitHub search, or maybe a little bit more of exactly what you're searching. If you're building a front-end application, giving good examples to the model of which tools you want it to call is helpful. And then just understanding how your users are using it. If you're in a world where you don't know which MCP servers a user is plugging into your app, again, just understanding how your users are using it, giving them coaching. And then I do think that letting people turn tools on and off in more of like they're plugging 5 or 15 MCP servers in is helpful. There's advanced techniques like prefill, like rag over tools, these sorts of things, but this tends to be helpful in a world where you control more of the whole ecosystem versus plug and play. But this is definitely an ongoing conversation amongst the community, and you're not alone if you're facing this.
Definitely. And thank you so much for answering all of our questions, Drew. Thank you for joining us today. We were super excited to have you. I think that's all the time we have for questions. So we'll say goodbye to you, but thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you.